Hi, everyone. You are listening to Radio Cherry Bombe, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond, coming to you from New York City. I'm the founder and editor of Cherry Bombe magazine. In honor of The Bear returning for Season 3 on June 27th, we're re-airing one of our interviews with Courtney Storer, the culinary producer of The Bear. Don't worry, there are no Season 3 spoilers. When the first season of The Bear dropped, it immediately found an audience for its portrayal of the camaraderie and chaos in the restaurant world. As culinary producer of the show, Courtney was tasked with making sure the details and the action of The Bear were spot on. She is also a big reason as to why the show has so much heart and soul. Her brother, Christopher Storer, is the creator of The Bear and was clearly inspired by many of his sister's experiences. Courtney worked in HR before pivoting to the chef world, then studied in Paris and had senior roles at Animal and John and Vinny's restaurants in Los Angeles. It's exciting to listen back and hear what Courtney had to say. The Bear was clearly a cult hit back then, but no one had any idea the show would sweep awards seasons and be a life-changing experience for everyone involved. Stay tuned for my interview with Courtney, and if you missed last week's re-air with Jeremy Allen White, aka Carmy, be sure to go back and listen. Today's show is presented by Kerrygold, the iconic Irish brand famous for its beautiful cheese and butter made with milk from Irish grass-fed cows. If you are new to Kerrygold, lucky you have a whole world of butter and cheese to explore. We're going to focus on Kerrygold cheese today, which I love and always have in my fridge. Now that I work from home most days, I'm trying to be intentional about my snacking, and Kerrygold cheese paired with seasonal fruit is one of my favorite smart snacks. I love Kerrygold aged cheddar and Kerrygold reserve cheddar, two perfect cheddars as far as I'm concerned, with sliced apples or Asian pears. Kerrygold Dubliner, which is sweet and nutty, goes well with ripe, juicy peaches. And Kerrygold Cashel Blue Farmhouse cheese pairs beautifully with figs and grapes. Add a handful of walnuts or some hearty crackers, and it's the perfect thing to tide you over between Zooms, deadlines, and emails. If you're snacking on the go, like I do on the days I record Radio Cherry Bombe, Kerrygold has made it easy with its new cheese snacks. Throw an apple and a Kerrygold aged cheddar cheese snack in your tote bag, and you're all set. Visit KerrygoldUSA.com to learn more about Kerrygold cheese, to browse recipes, and to find a store near you. Our show is also supported by Le Creuset. Le Creuset is one of the most coveted kitchenware brands around, thanks to their legendary enameled cast iron cookware made in France. I have Le Creuset's Dutch oven in white and a small saucepan in meringue, and I treasure them and use them all the time. Now, Le Creuset is inviting us to bring that same sophistication and quality outside with their Alpine Outdoor Collection. Specifically designed for cooking over an open flame, this durable, high-performance collection will enhance any grilling or backyard barbecuing you have planned for this summer, or maybe all year round if you're one of those folks. There's the Alpine Outdoor Skillet, which is so useful and versatile. There's a pizza pan. I know more and more of you are making pizza at home and outdoors in particular, and maybe the most useful of them all, the Square Grill Basket, which is perforated and prevents small items from falling into the grill while still allowing heat and smoke to reach the food for that char-grilled flavor. If you love to grill fish or shellfish or veggies, you know what I'm talking about and why you need this. For more information, head to lecreuset.com or check out the link in our show notes. Happy grilling, everybody. If you're a fan of Cherry Bombe's print magazine, you know my love for photography runs deep. So I'm thrilled to share the news about a special pop-up experience right in New York City's historic Soho neighborhood. It's called Emotions of the Sun, and it's a partnership between Maison Veuve Clicquot and the legendary Magnum Photo Agency. 8 photographers from around the world were given carte blanche to create work inspired by the title of the experience. So imagine warmth, the interplay of light and shadow, and a sense of place. You can view their work at Emotions of the Sun, which will be open to the public from Monday, June 17th through Sunday, June 23rd at 216 Lafayette Street. On Thursday, June 20th from 7 to 8 p.m., I'll be in conversation with photographer Alex Webb. If you'd like to attend, tickets are free, but space is limited. You can RSVP via the link in our show notes. I would love to see you there. If you'd like to come view Emotions of the Sun on another date or time, you can visit veuveclicquot.com to reserve your time slot and free ticket. Now, let's check in with today's guest. Courtney Storer, welcome back to Radio Cherry Bombe.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Let's jump right into it. You are the culinary producer of The Bear. What does that title mean?
a lot of different things. And I always try to explain it by being like, on a macro level, it's everything from before we even start production. It's looking at the concept for the second season. Where is the show going? What kind of things are being focused on? Is there any input that I can give to either the writer's room or the producers about experiences that I've had? I think as a culinary producer, it's bigger than just saying, it's just the food on the show. A lot of coordination and communication goes into talking to the restaurant community at large and using all the amazing resources that I've built over the years to collaborate and bring different energies and different perspectives to the show. Because it's not just within the script, it's so much broader, it's bigger. Before we start filming, I work closely with the actors on some development skills. So it's like, is that training movement? Is it cooking specifically, or is it just terminology that they can use when they're filming that makes it feel a little bit more natural? Part of that is also arranging stages for the actors. So I kind of work as the liaison between them and the
That's
different
fun.
restaurants. Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of the stages folks did?
Yeah, I mean, for season 1, Jeremy was at Pajoli, and then Io did a couple restaurants in New York. Lionel worked with me, Io worked with me, and it was just kind of setting up based on who's doing what when. So for season 2, I can't give too much information about who went where yet, but I was so lucky that so many chefs were willing to bring in the cast. I know we had a couple new people that wanted to learn a little bit more or get a little bit more comfortable in certain areas. So I really appreciated all the people who allowed our team in this year for season 2.
Are you right on set as
Every
they're
day.
filming every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really important because it's a different perspective, obviously. But as a producer, it's so much bigger than just looking at, the character chopping an onion. It's also like, how do chefs carry them in an authentic way? As much as I can help the actors, I love to be there as a resource. And they're so amazing at asking questions. Watching Io for me, I mean, I would get emotional because she has a confidence just as a person in the world. She's so smart and creative and brave. I was just thinking back to all these years ago. I would have loved to see her on the screen as a chef. It would have been so inspiring for me to see that. It probably would have given me a little bit more courage or bravery. I'm sometimes in awe at how much she can display that confidence, that courage. You can just see it in how she carries herself. And I hope to be an inspiration to the people who act on the show, but they also are doing the same for me in a lot of inspiring ways too.
In a little bit, we'll talk about your chef life, but I loved learning some of the little things you incorporated into the characters. And I read last night that with Io, you have her with a clipboard because back in the day, you showed up somewhere with a clipboard and the male chefs were not that thrilled that you showed up with
Yeah, it was
all organized.
Yeah, it was the organizer, the equalizer. Someone used to call me like, oh, the equalizer too. I'm like, what does that even mean? I think it was also like, I hate to say it, but there were times where having something in my hands, as silly as that might seem, it was like a little shield.
I can see that.
Yeah, and gave me direction and focus and purpose to stick to for the day, like an agenda. So I would get out of my head a little bit and stick to the task at hand because sometimes in kitchens, there's a lot of mind games and it's hard and there can be things that can throw you off. So I definitely had that Sydney vibe in a lot of jobs, but I think over time, that clipboard also meant that things were systemized, organized, things were ordered on time. We had produce when we needed it. Our dairy never ran out. We didn't 86 things off the menu. There was a benefit to it that eventually the kitchen team would see. It took time, but I think I won a lot of people over.
We'll be right back. Today's episode is supported by Open Table. I'm excited to announce that we'll be back on the road very soon with Open Table for our Sit With Us community dinner series, which highlights amazing female chefs and restaurateurs in the Cherry Bomb and Open Table networks. It's been such a treat meeting so many of you at our dinners across the country. Our next 2 Sit With Us dinners will take place at Jose in Dallas with Chef Anastasia Quinones Pittman on June 25th and Nostrana in Portland, Oregon with Chef Kathy Wims on June 30th. How does it work? You can come solo and sit at a Cherry Bomb community table, or bring a friend or two and we will seat you together. Tickets are available exclusively on OpenTable. Just search for the restaurant on the OpenTable app or opentable.com. Go to the Experiences tab to purchase a ticket, which includes a welcome drink and a 3-course or family-style meal. A portion of the proceeds from each dinner will benefit a local charity. Learn more about the OpenTable and Cherry Bomb Sit With Us series at cherrybomb.com. Your brother is Christopher Storer, the creator of The Bear. When did he tell you he wanted to write a show about restaurant life?
Well, Chris has been in the restaurant world peripherally and doing a lot of different food projects with chefs. I mean, I remember when I had first moved to LA, this is like 14, 15 years ago. Well, even before I was in LA, he was looking at doing things with Thomas Keller and working with Chef Roy Choi in LA to create like a docuseries based on local that Daniel Patterson and Roy were developing at the time. And he was doing it with one camera with a really small team and so devoted to this side of the restaurant world that, a lot of people weren't talking about at the time.
I forgot about local. That was their
Yeah,
whole
it's
sustainable fast
incredible.
food
Yep.
program that they were going to do in different cities.
Sustainable, affordable, fast casual food and
Hiring and training locals.
yeah, exactly. It was just really, really cool to see him do that when I was living with him very long ago now. I kind of knew that he had this movie at the time. The Bear was not a TV show up until I think recently, and it was kind of written as a movie at first. So I think it took on more life and more volume as the years went on, but he's been working on it for quite some time. Like, I think he has these little things that have been his little babies that are his beautiful writing. I mean, you look at The Bear and there's so much of Chris in there in a lot of ways and his experiences, whether it's through him knowing restaurateurs as we grew up as kids at Mr. Beef in Chicago, or all the respect and energy he's put in by just being around chefs and loving hospitality and appreciating it. Because I think him and I really have that in common, just how much food and restaurants have offered us a comfort throughout our lives.
Last time we spoke, I don't think I realized the extent to which you seem to be the beating heart of the show.
That's so sweet.
Because you had an interesting and tough journey through food.
Yeah, and honestly, the show is so much about food, but it's so much about heartbreak and dysfunction and heartache and trauma. I think what resonates about the show is, like you say, heartbeat. It's so sweet to say that it's me, but it's so many people. It's so Chris. It's so my younger brother. It's so me. It's so my mom. It's so my dad. And even though it's imperfect, there's a lot of pain that created something really beautiful. And I think, yeah, it's deeper than just Chris and I saying, oh, we both love food. I mean, there's a lot of family dynamics in the show. There's friend dynamics. There's leadership dynamics that we both, I think, understand personally very well.
So take us back to the show's completed, first season, about to be released into the world via a trailer. I remember so distinctly seeing the trailer on Instagram and just being knocked out and thinking, if this is half as good as the trailer, it's going to be incredible. But no one seemed to know about The Bear until The Bear started running on Hulu. What were the expectations? I mean, you obviously all poured your heart and soul into it. It's finished, it's edited, it's scheduled. What were you thinking? Did you know it was going to be a hit?
No, I didn't. So we all went into it with our A game without really understanding where the show would go, but knowing that we were going to put 150% into what it could be. And we're all very passionate about making it good. Everybody collaborated. It wasn't just this incredible cast and these incredible producers, but the crew and the set decorators and the props department and this village that did their research. I mean, so much thought went into every detail. The costume designers, people really looking at the industry at large and being like, what would this look like in small business? What would their budgets be? Would they be buying what produce in the walk-in? And this thorough kind of work, I think, propelled us into being like, okay, at least we know we gave it our all. I think what I worried about, especially in this day and age, was just like, how would people receive a show that had a higher level of anxiety, especially pre and post pandemic? How would they feel about a show that brings out anxiety and nerves? I was nervous that chefs would be frustrated or feel like we didn't nail it and didn't go as deep. I mean, how hard is it in a 30-minute episode to really encompass all of the complexities of a restaurant? Like, it's very, very hard. And sometimes what I was worried about is, wow, we're showing some of the hardships, but we were hoping to show also the wonderful things about a restaurant that get you coming back the next day. It's not all chaos. There's some wonderful, joyful, loving things in restaurants that happen as well.
Had you ever worked on a TV show before?
No, I had filmed things, here and there, cooking or odds and ends like that, but never in this way before.
So this whole role of culinary producer is brand new to you.
I mean, I walked on the set and saw the beef and literally cried. I was so emotional. It's a carbon copy of the actual one in Chicago. It was overwhelming. I also had this moment of pinching myself because I remember Chris as a kid having this clarity about what he wanted to do with his life. From a very, very young age, I remember him watching Ghostbusters and then watching it again and watching it again and watching it again. And then just having this like wide knowledge about movies my entire life. I mean, he has constantly educated himself in his profession, which has been a guiding light for me in food. I'm like, read as many cookbooks, meet as many chefs, build a community as big as you can, because that's how you get better and better. I learned that from him when we were kids. And so I felt a lot like on The Bear, there were just moments where I would get overwhelmed just watching him direct and being like, wow, like you're so good at this.
So the show lands. It's a critical and cultural hit. In terms of impact, it was probably the biggest thing for the world of chefs and restaurants since Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, and that's a huge thing. Why do you think it moved folks in the industry the way it did?
I think no one had really shown the people and the struggle behind when you walk into a restaurant and have a really good meal or your favorite Italian beef sandwich or fries even.
There were movies.
There were some.
There were movies. There were things.
There were things.
Out there.
We had a few, but what The Bear I think did differently is simplified it maybe, showed just a little bit more about the working behind the line, whether it's like scrubbing the floors at night, running out of things, trying to create a new dish, the struggles of that, the climbing that it takes to work your way up in restaurants, coming into new team dynamics and what that feels like. We wanted to nail that all these different characters are on their own journey. And I think you really see that there's a little bit to relate to in everyone. It's not just Sydney or Lionel or Marcus's character, but it's a little bit of like, a Richie in your life. Most people have a sibling or a cousin or someone that they know of in the workplace or something like that. And so I think there was just a lot to resonate within what The Bear is. So I feel like that's why people kind of found it interesting.
Were you prepared for all the conversation about the PTSD that it brought up?
Yeah, because I live in it.
You had. I mean, again, It goes back to a lot of your experiences.
My life, yeah, and so many people, not limited to chefs, but learning about yourself. I can speak to only my experience. I've worked like 2 jobs since I was 15 years old. I have worked very, very hard and supported myself through some really tough times. And that's just not like financially, but emotionally a lot of times. And what I found in restaurants is it kind of stopped time for me. I would have crazy anxiety or panic attacks or heart rate problems, or I'd be too tired to drive home from work after a shift, or I couldn't understand that, why in my free time I was always so exhausted and I was losing the joy in going to a movie theater. I would just find it as a place to shut my eyes for 2 hours. And I was like, this is not normal. And what's going on with me? And until I stepped away from working, at a certain velocity, I really didn't start to understand why those things were happening.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I'm going to make myself cry. I'm thinking about watching the first season, just watching the first few shows.
Yeah.
Sorry to cry.
No, it's
the
okay.
first few episodes, and then the last, episode 7, and then the finale.
Yes. Yeah.
Really just broke my heart.
I know.
So
I know.
In good ways. I mean, I thought it was very cathartic.
It's okay to cry. And guess what? Life is hard and it's emotional.
I watched the finale again with my brother, who never worked in restaurants. I was sobbing uncontrollably to the point where he was like, "Are you going to be okay? Do we need to stop watching this?" You know, I had a funny journey through restaurants. I never worked in restaurants until I owned a restaurant. I just thought it was the hardest thing in the world, but something that gets in your blood and works its way into your heart so deeply in a way that I don't think civilians understand. And I'm not in the restaurant industry directly anymore. I mean, I guess I am in a different way, but I cannot walk into a restaurant today without thinking each one is just a small miracle.
Well, hospitality is so beautiful. Taking care of others is so important in this world. It brings a lot of us purpose. I think restaurants are, yes, very difficult margins to be profitable and to support yourself and to provide health insurance for your staff and livable wages for everyone, and then make good products and bring in expensive good products and sell them for a price that people want to pay. I mean, it's a very complicated thing. I think that last episode, you see in that moment with Carmi and Michael, his brother, sincere joy and love just in that moment, in that little kitchen when they're making food together. It's probably the most peaceful either of them have felt in a long time. I have felt like that in kitchens. I felt like that when I teach a cook how to make chicken parmesan. And I've also felt like that when someone told me how to make a tortilla the right way, or like actually take the time to lift me up when I was naive or didn't understand how certain processes worked or needed more explanation on the line on how to cook, how to move my arms, like literally. That kind of connection feels like care and is a tactile skill that you take with you. And something about that's really magnetic and it sticks to your bones, it sticks with you. And so I think that moment was really important in the show because it's a reflection that Carmi still lives in that memory a lot to probably get him through.
I loved the ending. I know the ending was a little controversial.
Very.
The tomato sauce cans, that's all I'll say. But I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, it was incredible. I cried my eyes out. And that scene where you see everybody eating family meal, that was real. The spaghetti that they're eating and that day cooking the garlic bread and making the salad, like the stage smelled so good. And as soon as they said cut, we were all eating that food together. The cast, the crew, the team was there together.
Did you film it consecutively? So that was the last scene filmed?
Yes, we had to reshoot a couple things, but that was the last big scene with everyone that we shot. It was family meal, literally. It's very real.
We'll be right back. If you're looking for some fun things to do this summer, be sure to check out Cherry Bomb's summer series. Tickets are on sale right now for the following events. We have 2 Women Who Grill demos and dinners. The first one is taking place Friday, June 21st in Tannersville, New York at Deer Mountain Inn with special guest Chef Sarah Glover. Then on Friday, July 12th, we'll be outside of Santa Barbara at Rancho San Julian with Elizabeth Poet of Magnolia Network's Ranch to Table. Some of you might remember Elizabeth was on our cover last year. Then we have 2 Art of Entertaining dinners. On Friday, July 26th, we'll be at Greenport, New York at the Soundview Resort. And then Friday, August 2nd in Portland, Maine at Crown Jewel Restaurant, which is located on Great Diamond Island. I have no connection to Great Diamond Island, but I should look into that. You can visit cherrybomb.com for tickets and more information. The Cherry Bomb Summer Series is supported by our friends at Kerrygold, Le Creuset, and Pernod Ricard. I hope to see you this summer. So given how affected I was by season 1, obviously, I'm almost afraid to ask you, what is coming for season 2? I know you can't. I know you can't. I know you can't tell us anything.
Well, I can't go too much into it, but I will say that you will see the characters more and their stories continue on. The beef story continue on in this way that I hope a lot of people will continue to relate to. It's hard without spoiling anything to give much, but
do I need a box of tissues when I watch?
Yeah, I think so. I think you will.
Okay. We'll leave it there because I don't want to get you in trouble. with the lovely people responsible for this show. Let's talk about how the restaurant world and the chef world is shifting so much. One of the amazing things about The Bear to me was how it captured that in such a visceral way. How are Carmi and the crew a bellwether for what's happening and where things are headed in the industry?
Honestly, we don't know. Honestly, I don't even know where the industry is heading. It's changing so rapidly. It's changing, even being on the West Coast and being up in San Francisco and Silicon Valley and seeing all the developments in robotics and food. Like, that's really scary for me. And I think one thing about the Bear, when you talk about how is it showing where food's going, I think what it's doing is showing where food is currently. Like, it's hard being a small business owner. It's hard paying your rent when rents are skyrocketing everywhere. I mean, how do you have a small business in a field where you need a big staff and need, have a high overhead to make money? It's just really hard. It's difficult to compete against big corporations that are able to have the bandwidth to take on these amazing locations that like I would dream of, but it's difficult to pay for them. And it's hard to stay one of the small guys nowadays and the way the world is headed. So I'm sad about that. And I think even with my personal journey as a chef, it's something that I'm being really thoughtful about are my next steps. Where do I want to spend my time? I've put so many years into restaurants since I was a kid. And I love them. I miss them. I belong in them in so many ways that I'm trying to figure out how can I do it and also take care of myself and deliver on the things that I wanted as an employee when I was coming up. Health insurance, livable wage. I want to pay my rent. If I need a car payment, I don't want to be stressing and robbing this person to pay this person. It's like, it's complicated and it's tricky. So I think what it's showing is like, it's hard. Be careful what you wish for a little bit. And how do you do it in food right now? I don't have the answers because I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Obviously, the show has changed your life. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I mean, it's just incredible. I think it's changed my life in a lot of ways because number one, I got to work with my brother, which has been an incredible experience for me. I don't know about him. Just kidding. But it's been so nice to work together. I think on a personal level, it's helped me actually come into my own individually where I'm not working for someone else. I mean, essentially, I am being at the Bear, but for so long, I was a chef, head chef of other restaurants. And now I finally started my own business. I own the work that I'm putting out. That's been a huge moment for me just to trust myself. It's helped me trust my instinct a little bit more, listen to it. So I think that's been a really big change.
When you say you have your own business, tell people what that means.
Well, I started a couple years ago private chefing and then that branched out into catering, but I'm working on developing a product and hoping to release that ASAP. When it's ready, I'm calling you. You've got to try it.
We're here for you, Courtney. You know that.
But starting the brand Coco's, which is like Coco's to Go-Go, which is something that I'm developing. And in the food space, really being careful about how I go about it. Like you saw with the Bear, like something I've learned from my brother is hold it close and hold it tight. Stay focused until you're ready to really share it with the world. Because I think sometimes, so often, you're still figuring out that thing, that voice, and you got to just protect it a little bit for a while until you're ready and strong enough to be like, here it is.
And I was following you a little bit on Instagram over the past year. You did a lot of guest chefing.
Yes, I love it.
Tell us about some of those experiences.
Well, it's just so fun. So I went to Captain Whidbey's, which if you haven't heard of it, it is a small little cabin hotel that's in the Whidbey Island of Seattle. And it's just a beautiful place. And I had loved it for so many years prior to actually doing the little residency that I did. But it was an amazing experience to use local farmers and the different kinds of seafood that I had access to and the different butchers and things like that that were in the area and just dive in and create the menu around what was accessible. And it was just so fun. It was such a great exercise for me to like put food out there in the world that I'm making because you can see it now. You'll see it in season 2 and season 1, of course, but developing my voice as a chef is something I'm always trying to develop and it never stops. You don't just do it, just so you know, everybody. It's a lifetime process. You're always changing. How you see food changes. And I think embracing that's been really powerful.
Let's talk a little bit about your chef journey, because I think you will inspire some folks, because it was definitely not linear. You talked your way into a kitchen as a teenager, right? Tell us about that.
I think, when I look back at those days, I found that when everyone was telling me not to do certain things, I really was trying to listen to myself and my passion at the time. I knew that I felt really good in restaurants because I couldn't wait to go to a restaurant. Any commercial I would see on TV and they'd be stretching the cheese, I would be like, oh my God, how did they do that? Where did they make that mozzarella stick? How do I get there? Where is it? What is a mozzarella stick? I had this crazy food curiosity. And so I think about it now, and that was a big sign that I kind of ignored because for so long, I didn't see a lot of women behind the line in kitchens. And so I was intimidated by it. I thought it wasn't for me. When I would say I want to be a chef, sometimes I think people would be like, you'd be so good at running the restaurant. You should just run it. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to cook the food. And like, how am I ever going to be a good cook if I don't learn? And coming in restaurants at 15, I was like, they're like, you're smiley, you're positive, you're cheerful, you're the host. And I was like, oh, okay. But then like I would gravitate and push them a little bit to let me make the salads or the dessert. And then we talked about it last episode that I would make the cannolis with Babe in the kitchen. And then I would see that all of the recipes the chefs were using were hers. I was like, oh, she's the mastermind.
Tell us who Babe was again.
So Babe was the owner's mother, and she would just be there every day, come in around 12 o'clock, do her cannolis, make a couple things here and there, finish the salad dressings, give them like a different recipe, and then she would leave. And then we'd have a special that night. So it would be like frutti di mare or like something, some riff on something that I'd never heard of or seen before. I mean, I grew up in an Italian family, but this was, introduction into what calamari looked like raw or like what prawns were. There were these little things that I didn't really know. And so I had an insight, and that curiosity just continued to blossom and grow. But I didn't listen to that voice until further on in my life. So I stayed in restaurants. I served all through college, left college, worked at UPS, had a job at Natalino's, which is the family that opened the beef, or Mr. Beef in Chicago. I just couldn't scratch it. I couldn't get away from the restaurant livelihood, the energy. Maybe livelihood's the wrong word, energy. But I was making money as a server. And sometimes when you make money as a server and you say, I want to be a cook, they're like, you're nuts. Get out of here. You're going to make what, $10 an hour? You're making $200 to $500 a night as a server. I finally, years later, pursued cooking and went to culinary school, and then I never turned back.
Didn't you work in HR?
UPS.
Oh, at UPS.
And Whole Foods.
And wasn't it your boss at Whole Foods
Yes.
who told you to go to culinary school?
Yes. So he busted me because I was always with the chefs and prepared foods and was kind of like, hey, what's up with you? What do you want to do in your life? Because like you're very competent at HR, but you're always in the seafood department or the meat department. I mean, he's like, you're very thorough and everyone enjoys talking to you, but I need you in the office. You got to do your office hours kind of a thing. And I was like, I know. I love this team. They're great. He's like, but you love food. I'm like, I do. And so he just encouraged me to go check out the culinary school. And as soon as I set foot in a classroom there, I just never turned back. And I stopped listening to everyone telling me not to do it and that it's expensive and not necessary. A lot of that is true. And if you find the right chef, yes, of course, you go into a kitchen, you can learn so much through osmosis and just by being dedicated and passionate. And I've had so many cooks that have worked with and for me that never went to culinary school that taught me so much. But for me, I was very nervous about showing up, not knowing what to do. It was a vulnerability that scared me because I was a woman in a male-dominated field, but I didn't really feel like that was unique to kitchens. I've always been in that situation. Think most women feel that way, and most people who are non-binary and feeling like they're entering into a space where they're underestimated. So I kind of started to just say, okay, I'm making this decision to go to culinary school, and after I'm going to make it worth my while. And so I took big risks, and those risks were very scary, and people didn't understand them. And I thought I was nutso a lot of the time, especially when I went to France and was terrible. I was a terrible cook in Paris. I love every single cook that I worked with at Verjus. Big shout out to all of you for sticking with me and being patient. But I also earned it there too. I got to a place where I was good, but for a while I wasn't.
I want to just interject for a second. You did not come from money.
No, I mean,
You hustled to make all this happen.
well, that's a very complicated thing because my parents went through a really bad divorce when I was a child. My mom and my dad had a very difficult relationship. There was a lot of addiction issues and mental health issues going on. And as a child, I grew up really quick to help my mom. That was not easy, and there was difficulties managing money. She was really just trying to do her best, which I understand now, and I think that's a complicated thing, but it took a toll on me and made it difficult, but also I had to learn really early on that I have to be resourceful and that I have to figure it out, and, not having safety net is really difficult. It's also limiting for so many people that don't have resources or ability or mentors to it's not about just rising to the occasion. There's a million factors that contribute to whether or not someone is even able to take the risks that I took. So I really understand that. But I knew at the end of the day that being in restaurants, I got paid cash, and that was really important for me. And I could save the money and hide it. And that was my money when I needed it. And I started to build a little nest egg for myself. But when I went to Paris, I didn't have good credit. It's a very long, complicated story. But, it was like, what are you doing? Like several times I got there and I was just like, God, you really didn't think this through. But
Because you got there with no job, right?
no, I had a couple contacts that were like, try this place. One of the places was closed for summer vacation. The other place, I just sat on the stoop and waited for the chef to come in. But I remember like that old school hustle was because I learned from one of my chefs in culinary school who said, show up, just show up early, show up until a chef tells you to get out. But I'll tell you something, it's hard work. You can't go in expecting that you're not going to have to put in the hustle. I think that was really hard for me in kitchens, especially in a leadership position, because I would have to say to cooks, hey, like you get out what you put in. But that means if you come in 10 minutes late, you're going to get a different energy from me than if you came in 15 minutes early. And I'm going to be like looking to give you some actual mentoring if you put in the work. But if you don't hustle, I can't teach you that, and you can work the line and do a thing. But like when you're there and you really bring like your passion and you're dedicated and you show up for it, there's so much to get out of kitchens because chefs will respect you. Front of house will respect you. Restaurants, the team will feel like you're holding your weight. And if you're holding your weight, all of it comes naturally. And that's not about restaurants being too hard. It's complicated. Some places are really, really difficult. But for me, my secret to success was that I really took it very seriously.
Then you wind up back in the States and you eventually wind up at John and Vinny's. Tell us what you did there.
When I was back in the States, I was at Animal, and then they were opening John and Vinny, and then I came into it green. Not green. I was still green, but I had management experience from all my HR and UPS and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
that clipboard.
That clipboard. And I was like, okay, I'm really good at logistics. This is an operation that's open 14 hours a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's a lot to bite off and chew, but I can do this. I kept saying, it's not rocket science and I can figure this out. I've always loved puzzles. I was like, this is going to be something that I'm going to be able to figure out. And if I bring a positivity to it and if I can motivate the team, eventually I will see results. Thank you, UPS. I always talk about it. But it's like, I did. I was trusted by John and Vinny, and that kind of trust propelled me to try my best. And like Helen, who has Helen's Wines, like I really looked to how she navigated and was able to like move in a space. And I just tried my best to be me and also find a way to engage the team so that when they were at work, they wanted to come to work. I was never the type of chef that could intimidate based on my presence. I'm cheerful and I'm whimsical in a lot of ways, and I didn't want to lose that. But I also had to be assertive and stern and get results, and also let the team know when we had to focus. And I had people that came in and were calling me a B word, like the classic move, or she's too tough. She thinks she's really good. I heard it all. And I was like, you know what? I'm not perfect. I'm not the best chef in the world. Never said I was, but I'm the chef here. And I looked to so many chefs in the community and a lot of women and had constant conversations. Sarah and Sarah, who opened Kismet, I was like, how are you navigating this? And then I'd go to my friend Grace, who's a private chef and also a very established chef in LA. And I would be like, what do you do? Or what does this person do? And I looked to examples of people in the food world and tried to adapt my own because sadly, there isn't one perfect approach. Being a chef means you have to be adaptable. And so at John and Vinny's, it was constant learning, constant. Does this method work? No, try this one. I really think leadership, it's like I never stop trying to learn about it because it's changing. People are changing and your mindset has to change and develop and evolve. And so, like, podcasts for me were really helpful. I would really not know who to talk to. When you're at the top, lonely at the top. So I didn't sometimes feel like it was appropriate for me to say to a sous chef, I'm having a tough day. Like, I want to go. I'd have to just be like, you got to stick it out. And I'd put on Oprah's podcast. Not to be corny, but Super Soul Sundays got me through a lot of tough days, let me tell you. And so I think it was such a long journey of coming into my own. And I look back at it and I'm like, wow, that was tough, but also amazing too.
And now your experiences are in a way helping all of us.
I hope so. That's the goal.
It's been channeled into the bear.
Hope so.
I keep thinking of that manager at Whole Foods. And just sometimes, you don't want to butt in to people's lives or
Yes.
say something that maybe you think they need to know that they don't realize. And so shout out to him for caring
Yes.
enough to tell you what he really thought.
I mean, that's why there's such an art to being a mentor, and you never know who you're mentoring and how simple it is to say, what do you really want to do? What's important to you in a job? What's your 1-year goal, 5-year goal? I mean, I know that those things they teach us in school, it's like they are so profound because there's a method behind them. It gets you dreaming, and dreaming is important. And not everybody's given the chance to dream. And so you never know like who you might help by just saying, hey, like, what are you trying to do in your life? What interests you? What makes your heart beat? For me, it was food, but for other people, it's so many different, colorful, beautiful things.
What does your tattoo say?
It says pazienza, and it means patience in Italian. Because this is a little anecdote. When I was little, I remember I learned what pazienza was. My grandma was a cook. She just was a home cook, great cook. But I remember I would try to help her and I would pull things out of the oven, with the oven mitts. I'd be so little, I'd put the oven mitts on both my hands. I'd take them out of the oven and put them on the oven. And she'd be like, why do you do that? Like, do you think that you're helping me? What's happening here? And I just wanted to be involved. She'd be like, life is like patience, pazienza, like just calm down. I got this tattoo in Europe when I was working there because I wanted immediate results as a cook. I was like, I need to make money. I can't live like this. This is so hard. How long is it going to take for me to get good? One of my friends who's a chef, Jamie Rutherford, she's like, you just entered in something that takes incredible patience because you cannot walk in and BS your way through. You've got to earn it. Cooking, you just see it. You can't hide it. There's no Wizard of Oz behind it. You either got it or you don't, and you make mistakes along the way. And I made a lot of them. And I always say, like, pazienza taught me, like, you're good, but you're going to be bad for a while. And you got to be okay with that. Who cares if you mess something up? It's not the end of the world. And if people give you crap for it, let them give you crap. It says more about them than you. And you just keep going and you keep trying.
Pazienza.
Pazienza.
Okay. Let's do a speed round. Tell me one of your favorite books on food.
Oh, I love Marcella Hazan. I love looking through like great Italian cooking, these old cookbooks, because they give such good information, even based on around ingredients or the logic behind why ingredients are used regionally in this area over others. So I strongly recommend with cooks. There's so many amazing cookbook authors out right now. But if you're looking to start a foundational knowledge, it's really good to start back into some of these old cookbooks that kind of talk more about why ingredients are used when, how, roasting techniques versus broiling techniques. I love to learn all of that just because it helps me bring that oldness into the newness. And When I look at like Marcella Hazan and her simple risotto and peas and Parmesan and chicken stock, and I'm like, well, there's 4 things. But how did she make her chicken stock? And why does she have a brown stock versus a white chicken stock? And how does she have a beef stock and then a veal stock? And all the different things that bring out flavors. That helps me so much now to keep it simple. I really, really think that if anyone saw my cookbook collection, they'd be surprised because there's so many old cookbooks there. And I feel like it's something I'm passionate about is to not leave those behind. And I try to carry them with me in my approach to food when I'm cooking. And I just want to be a young Nona the rest of my life. I've just found that these women in food back then, they feel like family that I lost. You know, when you come from estrangement in your family or dysfunction, sometimes cookbooks feel like a grandmother figure or an aunt figure. And I really enjoy that.
Was that Marcella's tomato sauce
Yeah, well,
in the last episode of The Bear?
yeah, exactly. And we wanted that in there. Obviously, we make it a little bit of our own. You know, we add like a basil oil and chili flake and certain things, but it starts from her foundation. And it's also something that Chris has always loved, that recipe.
Next year will be a big Marcella year. It's her
Yes,
100th birthday.
exactly. That's
She would have been
also,
100 next year.
yeah. And I think it was courageous. Like it must have been back then difficult for her, you know, and I just think about that.
Best food movie.
Mystic Pizza.
It's a good one.
I love Mystic Pizza. I love The Big Night. I also love the scene in Karate Kid where he spills the pasta all over himself. I just want you to know that was me in kitchens so many times. So if that's you, you'll be okay. Like, stick with it. The amount of things I've dropped and made a mess of, I did that with a whole tray of wine once. Like,
Oh, favorite kitchen tool.
ooh, I would say the best kitchen tool you can have is your hands. But I also love a RoboCoupe.
One thing that's always in your fridge.
I love sheep's milk cheeses. I love them in salads. I love to use them in pasta. I love them as a snack.
Favorite childhood food.
Ribs. I grew up going to this place called Perry's in Park Ridge, Illinois. I don't know if it's open anymore, but I loved their ribs and fries.
Snack food of choice.
I would say I love ice cream of all different kinds. This is the Chicago, California controversy about me. I love pizza, and then I love like a farmer's market apple or like a pear or a peach. I didn't have that. Being in Los Angeles, you have the most amazing produce right at your fingertips. So I love that as a snack too.
Footwear of choice in the kitchen.
I would say it's tied between Birkenstocks and Nikes, but Nikes I have had a habit of ruining over and over, but I need the support sometimes. I like to be versatile and agile, but some kitchens, they don't let you wear them. So you gotta,
Oh, I didn't know that.
well, it's like slip and fall rules.
Oh, okay.
You know, some shoes are slipperier than others. What are those boots? The Blundstones.
Oh, the Blundstones.
Are
Folks
great.
love those.
We like to look a little stylish in a kitchen. I almost broke my neck wearing Danskos one time. That can't go back, you know.
Any motto or mantra, but I think you might have answered that already.
Which
with
one?
Your tattoo story.
Yes. And I always say this. I love this quote, and I used to give it to my cooks, but hard work exceeds over talent when talent fails to work hard. And it's a Kevin Durant quote. But I like it. It's a basketball quote, and I always feel like cooking has a lot of basketball sport references. It feels like a team. You're just trying to win the game. You got the bench players, you got the starters. It's like a whole thing. It helped me a lot often to just be like, do the hard work. It's not about just having the accolades. It's just stay steady, keep working hard, reach out for community, and anything can happen.
What are you streaming these days? Since you are of the streaming world now.
On TV, Yellow Jackets got me. It got me.
Did it?
Got me.
Isn't it?
Is
it
I
cannibals?
blame my love for soccer playing. I grew up playing soccer, and I was like, this show is so sick. But then it's like this whole cannibalism thing, so that's like weird. Obviously, Succession is just the best. But I also am always watching The Barefoot Contessa, and then I've gotten really into always, like on a flight, if it's on, Locked and Loaded. Like, that's my girl. You know, I love Pasta Grannies. I can just like put that on and just feel good. I've been getting movie lists from a lot of the cast of The Bear. So that's been fun. I feel like that should be a thing.
I know you need to
There's so
you need to
many
share that somewhere.
niche movies I never even heard of.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
All right, last question. If you had to be stuck on a desert island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
Oh, no. Can it be a tie? Okay, it's got to be a tie. I would say Elton Brown or Ina Garten. Because Elton, he's got those he's like, look, chemistry, science, we've got this. And then Ina would just be like, okay, let's light a fire. Let me tell you about my life. And one time this person came to dinner and I would just be like, yeah, just tell me all the stories.
I feel like that could be its own TV show.
Please, let's make it happen
The three of
somewhere.
you on a desert island.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, Courtney, thank you
Yes,
so
I
much for
love
coming on the
you.
show. And again, thanks to your brother for what you two have given us.
Of course.
It is such a gift.
Well, thank you to Cherry Bomb. And, I think it's really interesting I always visualize Cherry Bomb as something that I saw, and it's incredible to be able to sit here with you today because there's been so many years along the way that I used it. I remember seeing Kristen Kish on the cover and being like, wow, she's incredible. And what's she doing in food? And how did she get to where she's at? And it just always gave me motivation to keep going. And so thank you for that.
Oh, that means a lot.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for today's show. I would love for you to subscribe to Radio Cherry Bomb on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a rating and a review. Our theme song is by the band Tra La La. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Elizabeth Vogt. Our associate producer is Jenna Sadhu. And our content operations manager is Londyn Crenshaw. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.